In fact, what I do is make a little loop so that they don't move all over the place. It's Dr. Sasheen, and it's good to see you all. It's Friday. We're in a little bit of shadow right now because I have been running around all day long, and I just wanted to bring it down a little bit. So I'm going to leave the overhead fluorescent kitchen light off and just use the soft backlighting I have under the cabinets. How are you? How's it going? It's been a long week, y'all. There's just been too much going on. Too many things, right? Happening in the ether. And so I thought I would take this live, won't be here for a long time, but hopefully for a good time, to talk about this sense of people wondering, how am I going to survive the onslaught of things, right? Like, how am I going to survive the things that keep coming, whether it's the big things in the political sphere that are happening, whether it's the little things at work, whether it's the fact that you are part of the sandwich generation and you've got kids and you've got parents, whether it's the fact that you're not part of the sandwich generation and folks keep wondering how come you don't have kids or if you're ever going to have kids, whether it's because your job is driving you crazy, whether it's because menopause or perimenopause. Listen, we don't really care which pause you're in. All we know is we would like for that pause to be permanent so we can get off the train. Whatever it is that you're trying to survive right now, let's talk for a few minutes. Just a few minutes. Because I think sometimes we forget, especially as Gen X women, that it isn't necessary for us to always have to survive what is happening. And I say that because, remember, let me take you back to 1970s. Running out of the house on Saturday. Running around the neighborhood on your bike. Hey, Michelle, good to see you. Running through the neighborhood with your friends. Drinking from water hoses. Come on, y'all. Rolling around in dirt, jumping off things, climbing things. We survived our childhood, right? Like, we survived our childhood. Our childhood would make every generation behind us deathly afraid. Because yes, we had to be home before the streetlights came on. We were also down there scaling the streetlights, trying to figure out who hid the thing up there that we're trying to find because we're playing hide and seek, right? We were not worrying about survival. And as the years have progressed, the one thing that Gen X understands is when you drank from a water hose as a kid and you ducked and dodged in and out of the streetlights hoping that you'd get home in time and that maybe, just maybe, your mother or father didn't quite realize that you weren't home yet, your fear of things is not the same. So it may appear sometimes right now like people don't understand how come Gen X is so calm. How come we just have an attitude of, you know what, we gonna figure it out, but I'm not gonna get my hair on fire over it. And again, it's because we had the kind of childhood that most people can't even fathom. And consistently, whether you lived in the city, whether you were a city mouse or a country mouse, you had the same kinds of experiences of finding yourself raising yourself through all kinds of tumultuous times because your boomer parents, they were at work. They had things to do. And raising us was not top priority. That they didn't call us latchkey kids for nothing, right? They really didn't. And so it's really fascinating right now as we watch people be like, how are we going to survive what is happening? How are we going to survive the changes? How are we going to survive the tumultuousness? How are we going to survive? You're looking at the wrong thing. It isn't how are we going to survive. We've been surviving this whole time. It is more so, what are we going to do this time? If you haven't watched the video that I did on the question that really is the core question for Gen X, then you want to. Hang on, let me see who's talking to me here. I love a good Manny. I had a great lunch today with some girlfriends. It's been a good day. Hello, Adrian. Hello, Adrian. Welcome to the party. Sorry, I got to saying hi and thinking about lunch and you know, when you have lunch with your girlfriends and manicures and pedicures, it's been a good Friday. But let me get back to this. I think it's really important because it's from lunch today with another Gen X woman that we were really talking about how the idea of survival right now is based on people who really didn't, whose idea of survival comes from movies, comes from the movies, comes from reading dystopian fiction. They didn't get thrown out of the house on a Saturday morning and told not only better you be better at home before the streetlights come on, but don't come back unless someone's dead or dying. When your life as a small child is such that you have to leave your domicile, not get in trouble, survive, eat, and drink, and then get back to that domicile before the streetlights come on, you have a very different understanding of life. And part of that understanding, the beautiful part of that understanding, is that you survive things that will turn most folks' hair gray because you just did. It's not that we didn't have a choice, it's that we had the opportunity to play in the world. And this brings me to my next point. Because so much of people's idea of survival is based on dystopian fiction and reality TV, and we've stopped throwing our kids outside and saying, figure out what you're going to do with yourself and then come back in a few hours and tell me all about it. Because we stopped doing that, we made the world a very scary place because TV is really scary. It's really scary. It's not, I mean, it just is. I don't care what you're watching, but most things that are on television are designed for one thing, which is to scare you into watching next week so you can see what happened in the cliffhanger, right? And because of that, the view of the world as someplace I need to hide from is more prevalent than the view of the world as someplace I got to go play in. And I didn't need to survive the world because the world was my playground. And so now, with the world being in such a topsy-turvy, curvy kind of way, a lot of people are asking the question, how are we going to survive this? How are we going to get through this? And I think that you need to look to the Gen X generation who remembers that the world has always been a place of opportunity and crisis. We have lived through it all. We have lived through every possible iteration, fascism included, just not in this particular country. We have weathered oil embargoes, shortages of food, shortages of energy. We have played outside because we didn't sit in front of the TV because mama wasn't going to leave the lights on so you could sit inside and run her AC all day long. In the summer, you're going to go outside and sweat it out and then come back and take a bath and sit your butt down somewhere. Because we understood that life outside of our house was so big and vast and open, we're not scared of the world that we currently are facing. Hang on just a second. Hello, Miss Cicely. It's good to see you. Thank you. My coral sweater, I appreciate it. I'm in some low light because I'm having some tea and we're just chatting. I had lunch with some good friends and we were talking about survival and how Gen X just understands something that inherently seems to be missing from the conversation about surviving this particular time period. And that is, like I just said, there isn't much that Gen X hasn't survived. And we don't look at it as survival. It's just life. It's just life. That's why, I mean, I'll like a good dystopian novel as much as the next person, not as much, because we actually remember the arms race. We remember history because a lot of history that we learned in books, we also learned from our parents living through it. Right? We also understood that we didn't have time to worry about what was happening in foreign countries because we had issues in our own country that our parents were living through. And those issues are right in our face. They were right next door. They were down the street. They were the next block over. And so it wasn't about surviving. We just lived through whatever was happening because that was life. But now, because we have insulated generations behind Gen X to try to shield them, I think, from so many things, When a moment like this happens, when it looks very clearly like the world is teetering on the brink of something terrible, too many people are like, how are we going to survive this? And a huge generation of people are saying, you don't understand history. We have been living this every time. Every single time something happens, we just figure it out. We MacGyver our way. For those of you who don't get the reference, go to Google. It is your friend. We MacGyver our way through life, and we don't think of it as surviving. We just think of it as living. And that is what we're going to do now. We're going to live. Hang on. I was responsible for myself, my 6-year-old sister, and the next. See, we were on our own. Babies of the late 60s, early 70s, into the 80s, when you're born in that swath of time. Survive what? Okay. Listen. It was alarm went off. You went to school. You came home. You let yourself in. You fed yourself and everybody else. You survived until the parents got home. On the weekend, you made yourself scarce. That's just how we lived. That's just who we were. And that chutzpah is what has carried us through decades of radical changes within our country. So I was on Threads, and there was, why aren't Gen X more angry? Angry about what? Because the one thing that Gen X is, our students. We learn things very, very, very well. And we see patterns of behavior repeat very, very well. And so our hope in people lies with the belief that because we know how crazy the world can sometimes be, we also know that people banding together and pulling together can make systemic change. We also know everybody's not our friend. We were the generation that grew up learning about stranger danger. Remember also, we were kicked out of the house with zero supervision. Zero supervision. So stranger danger, don't go talk to strangers, but you can't come back home. Okay. So we learned self-awareness and to trust our instincts. Okay. We learned very quickly, okay, that person looks kind of sketchy, so I'm not going to go over there. We learned that really young. And so when the world starts to shift and look crazy to folks outside of us, you see a lot of Gen Xers going, yeah, it's not bad yet. Just give us some time. It's coming, though. We can see some things are happening underneath the things that are happening right now. We're just waiting. We're just waiting. Because, again, we were raised in this kind of duality of don't talk to strangers, but you can't come back home even if you do. And you better come back home. So don't talk to strangers. Don't come back home no matter what. And you better show up before the streetlights turned on. So don't go get kidnapped because I'm going to come and find you, but you're going to be in trouble. Imagine the world that created the Gen X generation. Imagine the way we had to move through the world in order to survive. And then you won't have to ask us, how come we're not upset? We don't know what are we going to be upset about? We don't need to be upset. We need to figure out what's going to happen next, and we will MacGyver our way through it because we grew up on MacGyver and the A-Team and Inspector Gadget and reading Flowers in the Attic by V.C. Andrews and also Stephen King and also fill in the blanks, right? Like I got handed letters from a Birmingham jail when I was 10. 10. I also got the pleasure of reading things that most people have never even picked up before because my parents, as I said about the Gen X generation, believed that education would set us free. And that is really a big reason why right now people are so scared because they have stopped studying the patterns of the world. Gen X is a generation that we've read everything. Saturday mornings at the library, Sunday mornings at the library, absolutely. Library card was our ticket to the big time, right? Like we could go check out any book that we wanted to, as many as we could get our hands on. So when you got kicked out of the house, you might have spent the afternoon under a tree reading. And you weren't going to the bookstore to buy books. I don't know about y'all, but my parents didn't have that kind of money to buy books every time I wanted to read something. And so our world wasn't just television and dystopia and reality TV. Our world was the time machine. And our world was the Wheel of Time. And our world was Letters from a Birmingham Jail and Sins from Our Father and If Beale Street Could Talk. Our world where their eyes were watching God and Flowers in the Attic. But also, we read the newspaper, oddly enough. And we read it like we were adults because it was around and we had nothing to do and you can't go watch TV because there was one in the house, one of them. So you go watch, you go find something to do. You go read the newspaper. You go do a crossword puzzle. You do something. And resilience, yes, Cicely. And in that resilience, we survived because we never had to ask, what should we be doing? We just went and did it. And that is the message I want us to take into the weekend and into the next week as we're watching the world spin on a very fine razor's edge. You don't have to ask what you should be doing when you were raised understanding that the helpers of the world never need to be told how to help. They just get in there and do stuff. And it might not be the help quite the way that it needs to be, but if you are in there doing stuff to help, chances are you're going to be able to help, right? And because we were raised in such a way that we are helpers, Gen X is full of helpers, sometimes we forget to help ourselves first. I bet you thought I was going to tell you that it's time to get off your couches and go engage in some radical activism. Only if you're ready, because resilience in this time has got to put self-care first. Resilience in this era has to draw on the well of the Gen X resilience from the 1960s, 70s, 80s, when we were all born, but also has to be tempered with the reality that we actually did our part. We actually did our part. Because in case it's being missed, the boomers fought for things, but Gen X had to get in there and implement it. We had to do the work. So as our parents were marching and fighting and putting their bodies on the lines, when things were granted, then came the next generation who had to put in the work to make sure that that thing stayed where it stayed available. And for years and years and years, that is what we have done. We have stayed in the fight to make sure that our children and our grandchildren on down the line would continue to reap the benefits of things that generations behind us had fought for. Now, I need you to recognize that part of the thread that needs to come forward from all of the fighting is a focus on you. Is a focus on how can you in this moment not take on the burden of making sure that everybody else comes out of this moment okay, because you did your part. And if you're on my channel, you know you did your part because I'm always talking to you and telling you, I know you did your part. I know you did. And because I know you did, I also know that you're probably like, but I feel like I should do, and I am imploring you to do for you first. And once you are okay, and once you are secure, and once you are in a place of peace, if you want to help somebody else, make sure they're worth helping. Make sure they have earned your help. Because one thing that Gen X needs to stop doing is giving away our help and our guidance to people who are not going to do anything with it. We are the generation who picked up the ball and ran with it. We are the generation who made sure that the people who decided not to exercise their right to vote, that was okay. We made sure that they still had the option to vote. And so I want you to feel empowered to save yourself today. I want you to feel empowered to find your peace. And the answer to the question of how you're going to survive can only be answered by where your peace lies. That's how you're going to survive. In your peace, in your spirit, in your life. Knight Rider. Oh my God, I loved. Who didn't love Kit? Who did not love that car? Trapper John. Oh my gosh, Hawaii Five-0. They tried to remake Hawaii Five-0. It was no good. I didn't like it. Magnum PI, Heart to Heart. Oh, I used to love the hearts. Cadme and listen, we could go on. Gen X, we had it. I mean, don't let these other generations fool you. Don't let them fool you. We had it going on. We had it going on, and we knew reality from fiction because our shows, our lives were escapism. They weren't trying to mirror reality. They were places for us to go to escape all the stuff that was happening. And that allowed us to have a very clear way to compartmentalize fact from fiction because our fiction and our fact never blurred. The lines did not cross. And that, again, has helped Gen X have a level of understanding and intuitive sense about the world that I think many, many generations are missing that have come behind us because we knew clearly the difference between fact and fiction. Clearly the difference. All right, I'm going to go have my tea. Thanks for joining me today, everybody. I'm drinking a green tea today. For those of you keeping up with the tea journey, this one also came from a Sequitico box. It's a straight green tea. And my cat, my little black cat. Thank you for joining me. Have a fantastic weekend. I sincerely hope that my Gen X out there who have been maybe struggling this week with so many, especially the news about the Department of Education. Y'all, I'm not going to pretend like these things are not happening. I don't want you to as well. But as someone who works in education and has for over 20 years, the writing on the wall has been coming for some of this stuff for a long time. This is a slow wave that feels like a tsunami wave crashing down, but these plans have been in motion for a long time. And Gen X could see them coming, and we did our best to try and tell people that it was going to happen. Now, you need to do your best to make sure that you're going to be okay. Not just surviving, but also thriving. Please click like and share, and thank you again so much for hanging with me, and I will see you tomorrow where we'll talk about something completely different. Anyway, have a great evening, everyone. Bye for now.